Read this article. Something spoke to me in that article. 16 weeks after that first class, I was off all 11 medications and honestly had no idea how my body healed.
So it wasn't all in your mind at all. The brazenness, Jana. We doctors got to be better communicators. And makes me feel like I have to give you an apology as a doctor. But being somebody that was in pain, taking 11 medications, and then being so lack of empathy or sympathy or anything, and just basically say, you're nuts, goodbye.
Welcome to Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear, where integrative oncology meets holistic healing. This podcast is your home for the latest in innovation, exploration, and elevation in all areas of integrative oncology, medicine, health, wellness, and beyond. Join me and a host of other innovators as we go from practicing to prescribing. Your daily dose of wellness begins now.
Dr. Nathan Goodyear here on another Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast, leaving the best for last. We are at the Metabolic Health Day Conference here actually in Tucson, Arizona. We're at this conference here where today's community day, where people within the community are coming together to reinvigorate themselves, basically rekindle friendships and just de-stress. But tomorrow and Saturday, we're going to moving on to new ideas, new concepts, new collaborations, new friendships that I think are really going to help us to move on to new opportunities. But I wanted to bring you behind the curtain, if you will, to some of the people that are here on Community Day. And I have here Jana Danielson. Now, this bio is really interesting. It's taken me back to the past, so it's really interesting. We'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to read her bio for you. Wellness entrepreneur, author, basically author, two-time Amazon International Best-Selling author. So author's not good enough. She's the creator of the Cooch Ball. We'll get to that in a moment. And she's award-winning wellness entrepreneur, as I mentioned, developer of Train Fitness. And I love the name of these supplement lines. Vibes for women and Hot Dad Vibes for men?
Skinny vibes and hot dad vibes.
You can't beat that. And then Orchid, an AI-powered emotional intelligence app. Jana, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. Thanks for having me.
You know, it was great to have you. My original training is in pelvic floor surgery. Now, of course, I was OB-GYN, but I've been in the integrative space, medicine space since 2006, and then integrative oncology since 2017. And a lot of that is personal experience. And I wanted to lose weight through residency, and after I had two guys I played football with that passed away from myocardial infarctions within 5 years. But then I had my own tumor, and so I pivoted to cancer. Cooch Ball, your history is born out of you being a patient.
Yeah.
Chronic gut issues, joint, pelvic floor pain. Now, you don't have to get into specifics or details, but unless you want to, but was the Cooch Ball born out of that? And did your experience as a patient precipitate your passion that now has fueled your purpose?
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And so, eldest child, farm girl from Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh, wow.
So I remember my dad, as a farmer, he would have Tums antacids within an arm's reach of himself, wherever he was, right? And gut issues at 17 years old. Sent me to my doctor, small town doctor. So I got my prescription. I walked across the street to the drugstore and I filled that prescription thinking in 10 days I would be feeling better. Fast forward 4 years, I'm 21 years old, finishing my business degree in university on 11 medications now, and going in to see my doctor to plan the next what is the next 6-month phase? Which specialists would I see? What tests would they do? Because I was searching for that fill in the blank diagnosis, right? The heavens would open up, it would shine a light on whatever I had, and then I felt like if I could get that diagnosis, I could start to heal. The reality is I went to my doctor's office that day and she opened up my file, which was like an old school phone book by that point, and she closed it very quickly. And she looked me in the eye and she said, Jana, we actually believe that the pain is in your head and you're seeking attention. And we wish you a nice life. And she stood up and walked out, and I sat in her office and made my way to my vehicle before I burst into tears because I felt like my lifeline had been cut. And the gut issues, fast forward those 4 years, are now joint pain where I feel like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz after a heavy rain. I am having major incontinence issues at 21 years old.
Wow.
And it's not making sense to me, because what I know about women's health at 21 is those things like peeing your pants, that happens after you have a baby for a little while, right? And then when you're in this phase of life called menopause, and none of those were my reality at that point. And I honestly didn't know. I was newly engaged. This engagement ring was on my finger. And I started questioning why I would marry this man, give him a life sentence of a wife that I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I wanted children. I thought, how is this body going to create a baby and grow a baby and birth a baby and raise a baby if I can't even get out of bed at night? And went into a pretty deep depression after that, 6 months, the dark night of the soul. And one day at the grocery store, I saw Madonna on the cover of a fitness magazine, and it had this word on the magazine, and I thought it was pilots. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, oh. So I bought the magazine. Turned out it's Pilates. And I read this article. Something spoke to me in that article. And I went to my first Pilates mat class the following week. Mm-hmm. And 16 weeks after that first class, I was off all 11 medications, and honestly had no idea how my body healed in 4 months, what 4 years of medication could not do. And that was the impetus for, the next now 30 years of my life.
Goodness gracious. So it wasn't all in your mind at all. I just, the brazenness, Jana, we doctors got to be better communicators. And, that was not communicated. I mean, that is so brazen, it almost makes me feel like I have to give you an apology as a doctor. Well, but I know I wasn't there, but I just can't, I cannot believe that. I can't imagine being somebody that was in pain, taking 11 medications, like you said, planning the next 6 months, and then being so bluntly lack of empathy or sympathy or anything, and just basically say, you're nuts, goodbye. That's basically what you got.
It's basically what I got. And, I'm in the middle of taking this. I love learning. So I'm doing a neuro course right now. And in the first Zoom call, one of the main pieces that we learned is that pain actually does reside in the brain like that. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe my doctor was right. It was in my head, but it wasn't like I was making up the pain. The pain lived there. Oh yeah. I just didn't know. Yeah, exactly. Right. It just that none of the meds really were assigned. It was those medications, grocery list of medications were symptom based, not root cause based. And I believe that as soon as I started breathing diaphragmatically, aligning my spine, nurturing my parasympathetic nervous system, elevating my frequency. Can you imagine going to bed at night? The last thing I would see were 11 bottles of medication on my nightstand, and the first thing I saw in the morning was 11 bottles of medication.
No, I can't imagine.
Like that, imagine like the drag on just my energy and frequency just from that. So I am so grateful for that pain journey because it completely pivoted me. When I started healing, people started noticing and asking what I was doing. And I got certified in Pilates because I was so curious. I was like, what is this form of movement that the health of the body is dictated by the health of the spine? And I just wanted to learn more and more. And because I'm not a physical therapist or a naturopathic doc, I'm not that. I need to break down information to a way that I can understand it. So I've got really good at helping people connect the dots in how their body works and what the body needs. And I was at a Pilates conference in 2013, 2014 and heard Dr. Bruce Crawford, a urogynecologist from Reno, talk about his pelvic floor research he had done with women. And one of the main findings was that 90% of pelvic floor dysfunction was not a medical issue. It is a fitness issue. It's proper breathing, it's proper posture, and it's blood flow. And it was it just kind of stopped me in my tracks because I was like, wait a minute. And by that time, I had owned a brick and mortar Pilates studio with an integrated health therapies clinic. So grew that business to a team of 60 clinicians. So I got to work with all these amazing movement practitioners and chiros and physios and naturopaths and Reiki and reflexology therapists, and really became like the quarterback of this team. And I had pelvic floor physical therapists in my clinic, but I thought, wow, if I could do something in my classes that could elevate pelvic floor health for women and for men, and then they could do their therapy and just amplify it. And so, the mom of 3 young boys at that point, I thought, well, I know as a Pilates instructor how to get the diaphragm to start to, be a major contributor to proper breathing. I know about posture, but the one thing I was like, how can I in a class get blood flow to the pelvic floor? So I went home, I was straddling foam rollers, I was sitting on the boys' mini basketballs and floor hockey balls, and I also knew—
I can see the boys going, Mom, what the heck are you doing?
Mom? And I called my husband down, I'm like, Jason, come sit on this ball. And he's like, what? So I knew what I wanted. I knew the sensation I wanted to create. And it was kind of like the 3 bears. Some of those balls were too hard, and I could tell it was triggering sympathetic. I could feel the tension in my body. My breath wasn't flowing. And some were just too soft. So that's where the vision, the idea for the Cooch Ball, I thought, I'm an entrepreneur. Here's a problem. I can't find a solution. I'm going to create it. So that's exactly what I did. And in 2020, the Cooch Ball was born, and really, been impacting bodies since then, and really trying to shift the pelvic floor conversation, because so much of our metabolic health, our constipation, our cold tingly feet, our chronically tight hips, all of that, pelvic floor is not just peeing your pants, or for men, maybe some erectile dysfunction. We're systems of systems. And so if you even look at Dr. Nasha's Terrain 10 in her book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, right? There's a movement component to each of those 10. So when we can start really getting movement to almost like a text message, communicate to the mitochondria to create energy, to shift blood flow, to help lymph. Now we are really supporting the body in multiple ways.
Well, I want to come to the Cooch Ball in just a second as it relates to cancer, because I think there's an application. I don't know if you've had patients with cancer using this, but I want to go back.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say connecting dots.
Yeah.
A couple of famous quotes I often use, one by Seth Godin, who said that what education does well today is teaches us to collect the dots, but not to connect them. And what I believe is that is so true, that those that are problem solvers, we call them entrepreneurs, might call them fixers, is they look at a problem and they don't let the problem define them. They say the problem is going to be the answer to the solution. They connect the dots until they find the solution. And then what many people would consider one of the greatest innovators of the last 100 years, Steve Jobs, he said, we can't connect the dots to the future unless we connect them to the past. Oh. So I was a pelvic floor surgeon. That's what I did. Pelvic pain was a big issue that these patients dealt with. Urinary incontinence. Those weren't always connected, but they often were. And pelvic pain was one of the most challenging things to treat. We would do biofeedback and other therapies. Okay, what is the Cooch Ball? What is it, and how does it help? Yeah.
So it's important to understand, first of all, the pelvic floor, in a very simplistic way, it's part of our core. Right? And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, well, the 6-pack, that's my core, right? But the pelvic floor is the floor of the core. The diaphragm, the main muscle of respiration, is the roof, and 4 abdominal muscles create the cylinder, right? The 6-pack, the 2 oblique muscles, and the deep transverse abs, like a corset. And so what the pelvic floor does not only holds up our pelvic organs, we use these 14 muscles really when we pee, when we poop, when we have sex, when we deliver babies, when we jump, it's involved in everything we do. Correct. But yet it's very misunderstood or understood. So for any muscle in the body, oxygen-rich, nutrient-rich blood is the nutrition that is required for those muscle fibers to thrive. All right. So then the body has this system called the fascial system. And fascia, the connective tissue, right, on a chicken breast, you scrape the white film, that's the fascia.
Right.
Well, fascia in a healthy body that is not over-caffeinated and is properly hydrated, sleeps well, eats well, poops well, muscle and fascia should glide. If we were sliding down a water slide, that's how the two tissues should interact. The reality is it's like sticky Velcro. And fascia restricts that oxygen-rich, nutrient-rich nutrition to those muscle fibers. And it's like when that happens, it's like those muscles forget what their job is. So what the Cooch Ball does, and we can Kegel till the cows come home, right? Because that's what we've been told to do. Just do your Kegels, right? Well, I mean, depending on what research study you look at, anywhere between 60 and 90% of the population is already what we call hypertonic. Those muscles have too much tension. They're holding on for dear life. And then we're Kegeling, and then we might laugh out loud at a joke our friend told us or cough, and we pee a little bit and we think, I got to do more Kegels, right? Which is just exacerbating the problem. So what the Cooch Ball does, it's like it doesn't discern where somebody is on the spectrum of hypertonic or lacking tone hypotonic. That's the beautiful thing. You don't need to really know. The ball's innate intelligence is that it meets your body where you're at. So for example, if you are hypertonic, and you sit on this ball, you're going to experience something called the ouch factor. The ouch factor is inversely related to the health of the pelvic floor. So if those tissues are like the desert, we're here in Tucson, and they really need to be like a rainforest, it's lacking that blood flow, there's going to be a little bit of ouch factor because those tissues are interacting to the fact that they're a desert, but they need to be a rainforest. So the practice is work your way up to 3 minutes a day, sitting on this ball. The weight of the body on the ball creates this sensation between the pelvic floor
so
and
is that like on the perineum?
Yeah. Like you are literally sitting right
because that's a small
perineum.
Ball to sit on there. Are there different sizes? You blow them up? Okay.
No, this is the size. You blow it up so it's a little bit squishy. Yeah, I brought one here. There. So we don't blow it up the whole way. It's not that it's unsafe if it's totally blown up, but we don't want to trigger sympathetic, right? And so the interaction here with this little bit of squish doesn't do that. All right. So then you're breathing diaphragmatically. And because I told you earlier, the pelvic floor is the floor of the core, the diaphragm is the roof. If you think of it like an influencer and a follower on social media, the diaphragm is the influencer. Okay, the pelvic floor is the follower. So the pelvic floor wants to do what that influencer is doing. So part of the problem is we live in a society where we are pretty wound, like we're wound pretty tight, right? We're breathing shallow. We are, again, not pooping like we should. We're not eating like we should. We're not sleeping like we should. And we really are in that perpetual sympathetic state. Right? And so we actually stop breathing with the diaphragm. You know, watch a newborn baby breathe. Their belly is rising and falling. We've learned, especially for women, as teenagers, we suck in. We want to be as narrow as we can. Our fashion is built to make us narrow or, small. That's what we want. And we take space away from our core, our torso. The pressure, the intra-abdominal pressure has to go one of two ways. And because we're on a planet with gravity, it tends to put that pressure down. So what the Cooch Ball does is for those people that have a too tight pelvic floor, it's almost like a massage therapist. It's going to teach the pelvic floor how to relax. It's going to bring that blood flow in. And we're going to take it from that hypertonic state to more function, right? You're connecting with your breath. You're learning. A functional muscle needs to know when to work and when to rest. Working all the time is dysfunction. Resting all the time is dysfunction, all right? Then for those people that are hypotonic or lacking tone, when you sit on the Cooch Ball, it almost becomes like this piece of biofeedback that the pelvic floor can now lift up and away from. So that's why it really doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. And the simplicity of this is, again, you don't need to plug it in, doesn't need to be charged. Although I have had people say, like, does it vibrate? And I'm like, no, that's my friend's company. That's not this one, right? But that's really what it is. It's a lifestyle tool that helps to bring blood flow to the pelvic floor. And whether you're a woman or a man, like my husband, I have boys that are college golfers, they swear by this with their hip mobility, their low back. I've had people like, even just constipation. Constipation, I mean, is a major pelvic floor root cause when you have so much, when you're holding, right? Like the perpetual kind of tight ass, right? You don't even realize, right, that you're squeezing. So that's what it does.
Well, this is fascinating because I want to now connect this to the future, as Steve Jobs said, because, I work in cancer, and, when we treat, for example, many patients with cancer, let's take prostate cancer, for example. When you activate the immune system, which what we do intratumoral ablation, intratumoral immunotherapy to activate the immune system. So the immune system gets recruited, and in that, prostate, in that pelvic floor area, this could be cervical cancer, this could be, vulvar cancer. That inflammation creates some irritation and typically hypertonicity, as you described it, to the pelvic floor. And just going back, I can just see all those images of the pelvic floor from anatomy classes and stuff. It's a very complex mix of muscles for sure, and they have to work in unison. So let's say after a prostate cancer treatment, somebody develops some urinary retention and some constipation, but it's from that hypertonicity and maybe even some urgent continence at night. This could be something that they could take home and use, could it not?
Yeah, you're talking about my dad. My dad had prostate cancer. He had surgery, and I remember my mom saying to me, Jana, I wish I had videotaped this, but the nurse came in, one of the nurses on his team came in after his surgery, and of course she was going to be talking to him about, what he might experience over the next few weeks, and urinary incontinence was one of that. And my mom said to me, Jana, he kind of stopped the nurse and he just said, my daughter created the Cooch Ball, so I'm good. I know what I need to do. And, it didn't take him long to regain that control. And he just, that connection to his body using the Cooch Ball.
Well, that's awesome. And then, a lot of patients will have pain.
Yeah.
In that area, because whenever you get the hypertonicity of the pelvic floor, again, male or female, that creates pain. And of course, constipation is a bane of our existence. Now, a lot of that's medication-induced. Have you ever seen the Cooch Ball help in medication-induced constipation? Because, most people don't understand this, that in the urination process and the defecation process, the beginning aspect of that is relaxation.
Yeah.
And so might this help there?
Sure it does, because it's the biofeedback. A lot of people don't even realize that there is that unconscious holding.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really like to coach my community on, is we become so adverse to pain. And earlier I talked about the ouch factor, right? Because there is going to be sometimes it's a lot of ouch factor. Like for some people, they'll start with 15 seconds, or like I'll get feedback saying, Jana, it was 3 breaths. That's what I started with today, was 3 breaths, and then I had to come off. And I'm like, that's great. By the end of the week, maybe you'll be at 4 breaths, right? And so what it does inadvertently is it brings people inside their body. You use the word meditate, and people are like, I can't meditate. This is one of those things where almost, when they say when you're humming, it kind of quiets your brain. This is one of those physical experiences where when you're on the ball, you inadvertently go within, and it's like the outside noise goes away and you really start to, feel what's going on in your body. So, I've had, and you can use, like I sat on it before right under the perineum, but I have, you can move the ball back closer to the anus. You can, tuck the tailbone. You can move it through the glutes, right? Like the piriformis, that area.
So you could use it with, basically sacroiliac pain related to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's where it expanded. And actually it was a conversation with Dr. Nasha 3 years ago at a conference in Sayulita, Mexico, when I first met her, where I was doing a presentation about the Cooch Ball. The Scooch Ball, which is the little one, this is the Cooch Ball's little sister, because what I started learning after I launched the Cooch Ball was that so much of like plantar fasciitis and foot dysfunction, and then tightness through the jawline, the TMJ, the hairline, is also connected into the pelvic floor. And I was like, well, the Cooch Ball doesn't get into those little nooks and crannies. So that's what the Scooch Ball does. It was talking with Dr. Nasha that she's like, you're really onto something here from a metabolic movement is medicine perspective, because this addresses circulation, it addresses lymph, it addresses posture, it addresses breath, which are some of the most overlooked components of of fitness and wellness,
Yeah,
right? So bringing people, back to the basics of cellular health and having your cells being properly oxygenated is really what this is all about. So there's a whole gut health sequence that I do on the ascending transverse and descending colon. So laying prone and moving the Cooch Ball from, up the psoas, across the colon, down and under the belly button to really encourage that. So sitting on it is important, but for some people, even if they might have like hemorrhoids or anal fissures, sitting on this ball is not going to be on their list of things to do. Yet I can just flip them onto their tummy and have them work through the front of the body to support that constipation and help them start to be more regular.
So for me, I look at everything through the prism of cancer. But it's interesting that connection to the past is connection to the future for hopefully some patients. And I have one patient in mind, and if he watches this podcast, you know who you are up in Idaho. But because I'm always looking at ways to develop new relationships, new collaborations with other innovators to help more patients. Why this community, and why here this weekend?
So, it literally does start with Dr. Nasha. Her and I her and her husband live 2 towns away from me in Mexico. So we get to see each other. In Mexico? Yeah, just north of Puerto Vallarta. So we're in Nuevo Vallarta. She's over in La Cruz. So we're just
San Jose de Cabo.
Okay. Well, my family has, I was talking to your wife earlier. So, she really was like the spark that made me interested in how I could impact this community, especially. I've had a grandmother and aunts with cancer, like I said, my dad with prostate cancer. And so my life has been impacted by that. And what Dr. Nasha gave me almost 3 years ago was the confidence to step into this community. I wasn't sure that what I had was the right fit until she stopped me in my tracks and she's like, listen, this is what we need. We need tools at home that people can do in the comfort of their own home that, in those days where even just getting off the couch to go and fill their water bottle is about all they can manage, to be able to have, sit up and do this work, or do a little bit of work, along the side of the breast, or, the back of the neck, just to be connecting into the body. And so that's what really got me excited about it, and have done more collaborations with Dr. Nasha and her community. So when this opportunity came up to support her and be a sponsor here, and, Saturday morning, I'm hoping there will be 150 people outside doing the terrain fitness morning movement as medicine experience with me, so that I can show how no matter where someone is, in their cancer journey, or as naturopathic oncologists, or as, health coaches, this kind of movement, I feel for most people that are going through a cancer journey, it might be quick for them to say, like, one day I'll get back to, moving my body and exercising. And I'm trying to redefine that. I want to bust some of those old myths, and I want to educate and inspire on simple ways that the body can respond in a very healing manner. So that's why this community, that's why this conference. I'm excited to connect with so many of the beating hearts here over the next 48 hours, because we were talking before we came on, and I said, there's such a, health tech, there's all the little gadgets that we're wearing and measuring, right? But I think that we've forgotten that we have, AI is AI, but we have this BI, our body is smart. And even though it didn't come with a owner's manual on checkout page 74, when you have this symptom, when you remember that it does have this innate ability to heal, it can really shift something inside. And that's exactly why these tools are as simple as they are. Wow. To plug into that body intelligence.
So what do you want to see coming out of this? Because there's community today, and tomorrow and Saturday is where there's really different idea people coming in. where I think we have the opportunity to provide a new direction moving forward. What do you hope might come out of that?
If we were future pacing, so it's October of 2025, my vision is, let's say it's October 2028. Let's say it's 36 months from now. I want to be sitting here again with you, and I want to be sharing or having the conversation. Do you remember back in 2025 when we were here? And since that time, all of the collaborations and partnerships and impact that has happened because of this moment, that's what I know is coming out of this.
So it's the inspiration, it's the collaboration, but it's the action.
Absolutely.
It's the action. So, and that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about on Saturday is we have to start now. Now, that doesn't mean everything is achieved now, today, but the momentum initiates. And again, we're at that precipice of opportunity or collapse, but we need a transformation, but it's not going to be one that occurs rapidly. It's going to be one that takes time. It's going to be one that takes people. And I think that's what we've got here. And that's what I think we have the opportunity to build and spread out, where we can collaborate together and work together, whether that be people with pelvic floor issues, whether that be people with pelvic pain, post-operatively, urinary retention, constipation, medication-induced, or anything else. And we can innovate for a future. And, having 4 kids, you have 3?
3.
How old are they?
They're 20, 22, 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to name the age of our kids because it's been a long day, and I've got 2 of them in here, and I'll probably get it wrong, and then I'll hear it the rest of the night. So, but on that note, and I totally lost where I was going with that thought. But anyways,
that's okay.
So that's even going to further, I think, support what they're going to tell me is that, Dad, you're getting old.
Yeah.
Does this help memory? but anyways, so I think there's great opportunity here to change the future, and it's through relationships. It's through relationships, and that's what's important to me. It's whether it's a doctor-patient relationship or whether it's a collegial relationship that brings new innovation to patients. And when I saw the opportunity to talk to you, of course, I saw this, the Cooch Ball. Where'd the name come from?
I was actually, so I had a marketing firm help me, and they came back to me and they were so excited, and they did the presentation, and the 2 names they came up with were the Perry Ball and the V Ball. And I was like,
yeah,
right?
No, that.
And so here's where the Cooch Ball came from. So anytime I would start talking about pelvic floor fitness in my Pilates classes, the energy got weird. Clients that were with me for years, they wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I was like, okay, I need to find a name for this product that will stop people and be like, wait, what? It's the what ball? So then I could start having the conversation, right? So that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be striking enough that it encouraged the question, because following the question then could be the conversation.
Well, it's good.
Thank you.
And I like that. But, I saw this as an opportunity to help our patients. And now not every patient, I think, could benefit from any and every therapy, but I have several patients in mind that I know could benefit from this. So I wanted to bring you on and be able to talk to you about this, because I truly think this is innovative, and it harkens me back to a past where I could have used this then to help a lot of patients. And so I thank you for your innovation. And how can our listeners, our viewers, find out more about you, or how can they find the Cooch Ball? How can they find your book?
Yeah, well, so it's very simple. Yeah, so janadanielson.com, Jana like banana, Jana, Danielson.com. All my social media is jana.danielson. Please reach out. I answer all my DMs.
Wow.
I think that's I feel like if someone has taken the time to send me a message, then darn, they deserve a message back from me. Sometimes it's a quick voice note, but please do, reach out. Reach out, please.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Jana, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the innovation. And I encourage you to, first of all, whenever writers come on our show, I always say thank you, because it takes courage to bring forth new ideas, put words out there for debate and discourse. Because as you know, they're not all well received with open arms. And innovation in products is equally challenging, where people would say, well, that's kind of silly, but it makes sense. And my pelvic floor pass, it was like, I saw the connection initially without even talking to you. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So thank you for what you're doing, and don't stop. We need more of it.
Thank you.
And yes, when we come back maybe a year or two from now, and we see all the innovation that's coming from it, you bet. Let's get back on that podcast together and talk about what this conversation and what this weekend brought for the future.
I would love that.
Yeah. Well, I'm Dr. Nathan Goodyear. This is the Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast. Signing off with the Cooch Ball. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Prescribed Podcast. All references supporting this episode can be found on the prescribed.com website. That's pre-scribe.com. To get your next dose of medical innovation, make sure you subscribe to Prescribed. We'll see you for your next refill.